I started working at Target the summer after my first year of college because I needed money fast. Tuition had gone up again, my financial aid barely covered anything, and my mom was already working doubles at a nursing home just to keep our apartment. I didn't want her stressing about me too, so when the Target off Highway 18 hired me as a cart attendant, I took the job immediately. It honestly wasn't terrible. Most people look down on cart attendants like it was some embarrassing job, but after a while you stop caring. You throw on headphones when managers aren't around, push carts for 8 hours, sweat through your shirt, and go home with a paycheck. Simple. The store sat on the edge of town beside a big shopping plaza that was half empty. During the daytime, it stayed busy enough to distract you, but at night the parking lot became eerie, especially near closing. I usually worked evening shifts because they paid slightly more after a certain hour. By the time this happened, I'd been there around 4 months, long enough to know everybody. Or at least I thought I did. That Saturday started normally. It was late July, hot enough that the asphalt looked like it was melting. The air outside felt heavy and sticky, and every metal cart handle burned your palms if they sat in the sun too long. I clocked in around 3:45 p.m. "Hey, Evan," my team lead called as I walked through the back room. I raised a hand. "What's up? You're outside all night." Mason called out. "Again," she rolled her eyes. "Again." I laughed. "Guess I'm living the dream. Don't die out there. No promises." I grabbed my walkie and fluorescent vest from the equipment shelf. The vest smelled like sunscreen and old sweat no matter how many times they washed it. Typical Target uniform. By 5:00 p.m., the parking lot was chaos. Families everywhere. Kids screaming. Shopping carts left in random spaces 5 feet apart like people physically couldn't walk another few steps. I spent hours dragging long lines of carts back into the store while guests ignored me completely. Around sunset, things finally slowed down. I remember standing outside the grocery entrance drinking from a warm water bottle while watching orange light reflect across hundreds of parked cars. It almost looked peaceful. My friend Nolan walked out carrying returns. "You closing?" he asked. "Unfortunately. Dude, good luck." "Saturdays suck." "You leaving already?" "Yeah." He grinned. "Enjoy prison." I flipped him off jokingly. He laughed and disappeared toward his car. Around 9:30 p.m., the store became dead quiet. That's how retail stores always feel near closing, like somebody sucked all the life out of the building. Half the lights dim. Music sounds creepier. Employees start talking softer without realizing it. I was outside collecting the last few carts from the far end of the lot when my walkie crackled. "Cart attendant?" The voice was male, calm, normal sounding. I grabbed the radio clip to my vest. "Go ahead." There was a pause filled with static. "Can you switch over to channel 3? I frowned slightly. Most employees stayed on channel 1 unless managers needed privacy for something. Still, it wasn't weird enough to question. "Yeah, all right." I switched channels while pushing carts. "I'm here." The voice came back immediately. "Hey, can you head over to the east side of the building?" I stopped walking. The east side barely had anything except employee dumpsters and an old cart return. Nobody used much anymore. "What for?" I asked. "I need you to check something out over there." "What is it?" Another pause. "Looks like someone damaged some carts." I sighed. "All right." I started heading that direction. At the time, nothing truly felt wrong yet. That's the part I keep thinking about. How normal it sounded. I'd heard random managers from other stores use the walkies before. Sometimes security people too. And because I spent most of my shift outside, I honestly didn't know every employee inside the building. As I walked along the side of the store, the noise from the front entrance disappeared behind me. The farther you got from the doors, the quieter everything became. The only sounds were my shoes scraping pavement and distant traffic from the highway. The east side of the building was darker than the front because 2 parking lot lights had been broken for weeks. I remember seeing the cart return first. Only 4 carts sat there. Nothing damaged, nothing unusual. Then I noticed the SUV, black, large, parked near the curb facing the building. The engine wasn't running, but it felt strange because nobody parked over there unless they worked at the store, and employees usually parked closer to the entrance. I slowed down. Something in my stomach tightened a little. I lifted the walkie. I'm over here," Static crackled. Then the man answered quietly, "Walk farther down." I looked around. I don't see anybody. Closer to the back. That was the moment my brain finally started telling me something was off. The voice sounded too calm, too controlled, not annoyed like a manager. Not rushed, just waiting. I stopped moving completely. The area behind the building was almost pitch black except for dim security lights near the loading dock farther away. "Hello?" I called out. No answer. Then suddenly the SUV's headlights exploded on. I physically jumped. The lights hit me directly in the eyes so hard I couldn't see anything for a second. At the exact same moment, I heard doors open. More than one. My vision cleared just enough to see movement. 3 men were getting out of the SUV. Fast. 1 from the driver's side, 2 from the back. All of them heading toward me without saying a word. Every instinct in my body fired at once. I turned and ran, not thinking, not processing, just pure panic. My shoes slammed against pavement while my walkie bounced violently against my chest. Behind me, I heard footsteps speeding up too. One of them yelled something, but I couldn't understand it. I cut around the corner of the building so fast I nearly slipped. The second I saw the front entrance lights again, adrenaline hit even harder. There were still a few guests walking in and out near closing, and the men behind me suddenly slowed. I glanced back once. The 3 of them had stopped near the corner, just standing there watching me. One wore a gray hoodie. Another had a baseball cap pulled low over his face. Then they turned around and walked back toward the SUV. I sprinted to the grocery entrance so hard the automatic doors barely opened in time. A cashier looked up immediately. "Jesus, you okay?" I bent over trying to breathe. Yeah, but I definitely wasn't okay. My hands were shaking uncontrollably. I found my closing manager near self-checkout. Her name was Denise, mid-40s. Tough personality, but decent person. "Hey," I said breathlessly. She looked concerned instantly. "What happened?" "There's someone outside using a walkie-talkie." "What?" "They told me to go to the side of the building." Her expression changed. "Who? I don't know. Was it one of the guys from security?" "I don't think so." She took my walkie. "What channel?" 3. She switched over. Nothing. Just static. Denise frowned. "You sure it came through this?" "Yes." She looked toward the doors. "What happened outside?" "This is the part I regret." I hesitated, because suddenly saying it out loud felt stupid. 3 men chased me into the store. Even in my own head, it sounded dramatic, and I already knew how management was sometimes. If police got involved, there would be reports, questions, corporate headaches. Part of me wanted to pretend it never happened. "I don't know," I muttered. "Probably somebody messing around." "You saw someone?" "There was a black SUV parked over there." Denise crossed her arms. "You think they were pranking employees?" "Maybe. You should have called security immediately." "Yeah," she handed my walkie back. "We'll stay near the front for now." I nodded. But my stomach still felt sick. About 15 minutes later, I looked outside through the front windows. The SUV was gone. Closing announcements started echoing overhead. "Attention target guests. The store is now closed." Employees started locking doors while remaining customers checked out. I kept replaying the situation in my head over and over. The lights, the doors opening, the men running at me. It didn't feel like a prank. Not even close. After we finished closing, I walked out with 2 coworkers instead of alone. The parking lot looked completely empty except for employee cars. I scanned every corner while unlocking mine. Nolan texted me right as I got inside. "You survive?" I stared at the message for a second before replying, "Barely." Then I drove home. I barely slept that night. Every little sound outside my apartment made me look out the window. The worst part wasn't even what happened. It was not knowing what would have happened if I kept walking toward the back of the building. That thought stayed with me. The next afternoon I came into work again. I almost called out honestly, but money was tight. And part of me didn't want fear controlling me. When I walked into the break room, Denise was sitting there drinking coffee. She looked up immediately. Hey, you all right today? Yeah, she hesitated. Listen, after you left last night, security checked the cameras. That got my attention fast. And there was an SUV parked over there for almost 40 minutes. I felt cold instantly. 40 minutes? She nodded slowly. They watched you walk over there. I didn't say anything. The cameras don't really catch the side area well, she continued, but they saw the vehicle leave right after you ran. My chest tightened. Did they get a plate? No. I swallowed hard. Denise lowered her voice. You should have told me they chased you. So she knew. Or guessed. I didn't want to overreact. That's not overreacting. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then she sighed. We told everyone not to switch channels anymore unless management confirms it first. I nodded silently. She looked genuinely unsettled now. Honestly? You probably got lucky. Those words sat with me the rest of the shift. You probably got lucky. A week later, another cart attendant quit suddenly. Before leaving, he mentioned something strange while we were outside gathering carts. You ever notice weird cars sitting around here late? I looked at him immediately. What kind of weird? I don't know. Just random people watching the store. I didn't tell him my story. I just said, yeah, sometimes. After that night, I changed a lot of habits. I never went to the side of the building alone anymore. Never switched channels unless I recognized the voice. Never wore headphones outside. And every time a dark SUV rolled through the parking lot near closing, my chest tightened a little. Nothing like that ever happened again. At least not directly to me. But about 3 months later, police showed up at the store asking for security footage involving suspicious activity around nearby shopping centers late at night. Nobody told employees details. Rumors spread anyway. Attempted abductions. People impersonating workers. Men using radios to lure employees outside businesses after closing. Most people brushed it off as gossip. I didn't, because sometimes I still think about how close I came to walking behind that building. How easily I trusted that voice, and how 3 strangers were already waiting before I even got there. The scariest part is knowing they probably had a plan, and the only reason it failed was because something inside me realized it felt wrong a few seconds too early. I still work retail sometimes during school breaks, but I never forget that night. Especially when stores get quiet near closing and the parking lot starts emptying out. Because now, whenever a walkie crackles unexpectedly, my heart still skips for a second before I answer. What this story teaches us: stay safe, stay smart. The story is a powerful real-life reminder that danger doesn't always look scary at first. The most chilling part is how normal everything sounded. A calm voice, a simple request, a routine task. That's exactly how predators operate. They study your environment, learn your routines, and use familiarity against you. The biggest lesson here is trust your gut. Evan's instincts fired the moment the voice said, "Walk farther down." That quiet inner discomfort is your brain detecting something your conscious mind hasn't processed yet. Never ignore it. No job task, no polite request, no sense of obligation is worth overriding that feeling. Never go to isolated areas alone, especially near closing time. Dark side entrances, back alleys, empty parking lot corners, these are danger zones after hours. These men had been watching for 40 minutes before making their move. They chose the location deliberately. Always be aware of your surroundings and avoid low visibility areas without a coworker present. Verify before you comply. In any workplace, if someone asks you to switch communication channels or go somewhere unusual, confirm it face-to-face or through a recognized supervisor first. Predators impersonating authority figures is a real, documented tactic used to isolate victims. Speak up immediately. Never downplay what happened. Evan hesitated because he feared sounding dramatic. That silence could have endangered every closing shift employee after him. If something feels wrong, report it completely and honestly. Your discomfort matters more than avoiding awkwardness. Personal suggestion: always exit with someone. Make it a non-negotiable habit, especially during late shifts. Walk to your car in pairs, park close to entrances, and keep your phone accessible. 30 seconds of caution is always worth it. The men had a plan. Evan survived because his instincts kicked in just in time. Don't wait for your close call to start paying attention. I was 19 when I started working at Target on the east side of Columbus, Ohio. It wasn't the kind of job people dreamed about, but honestly, I needed it badly. My mom had been out of work for almost 6 months after hurting her back at a nursing home, and most of the bills had started falling on me. I had dropped out of community college halfway through the semester because I couldn't keep up with both classes and work anymore. The Target job wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than the gas station I worked at before, and they offered me almost full-time hours right away. Most mornings, I worked the 6:00 a.m. stocking shift. If you've never worked retail that early, the building feels completely different before customers show up. The lights are too bright. The air feels cold. Pallets are everywhere. Half-open boxes line the aisles. Everyone's tired and barely talking while drinking burnt coffee from the break room. For the first few months, I mostly worked grocery. Cereal, canned food, frozen items, snacks. It was repetitive, but I liked that nobody bothered me much. I'd throw one earbud in, stock shelves, and keep my head down. The store itself was old too. The back room especially. The stock area behind grocery was basically a maze of towering steel shelves, narrow aisles, and rolling pallets stacked higher than your head. Some parts back there barely had enough room for 2 people to pass each other, and for some reason, it was always weirdly quiet. Even when people were back there working, sounds carried strangely. A box falling 2 aisles away sounded like a gunshot. Sometimes you'd hear footsteps but never see anyone. New employees constantly got lost back there. That morning started completely normal. I remember because I almost overslept. My alarm never went off, and I woke up at 5:22 a.m. in a panic. I threw on my red shirt, grabbed a hoodie, and sped to work with no breakfast except a protein bar I found in my car. When I clocked in, my team lead, Marcus, looked half asleep. "Morning," he mumbled while checking inventory sheets. "You look dead," I said. "Didn't leave till midnight," he replied. "Truck was a disaster." I laughed. "Love that for us." He handed me a scanner. "Grocery back room's a mess." "Can you start clearing the cereal pallets first?" "Yeah, got it." At around 8:00 a.m., the store opened. Customers slowly started trickling in, but grocery was still mostly empty. Parents with carts. Old people walking slowly aisle to aisle. Normal stuff. I spent about 15 minutes stocking canned soup before Marcus asked me to start organizing overstock in the back. By then, I was the only one working in the grocery stockroom. I actually preferred it that way. No customers asking stupid questions, no managers hovering over you. Just quiet. I dragged a flat cart stacked with boxes through the swinging double doors into the back room and started opening inventory. The scanner beeped every few seconds while I worked. Everything felt normal. Until I heard something move. At first, it was faint, like cardboard scraping against concrete. I stopped cutting open a box and looked around. Nothing. The backroom aisles stretched endlessly between shelves stacked with paper towels, canned vegetables, chips, bottled water, and random overstock. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. I figured maybe another employee had come back there. "Marcus?" I called. No answer. I shrugged it off and kept working. About 2 minutes later, I heard it again. This time louder, a quick shuffle. Definitely footsteps. I turned around sharply. "Hello?" Still nothing. That's when I noticed movement near the far corner behind a stack of diaper boxes. Something ducked down fast. I froze. For a second, I genuinely thought someone was screwing with me. One of the overnight guys liked hiding and jumping out at people sometimes. Stupid stuff like that happened all the time. I laughed nervously. "Very funny," I called out. "I saw you." Silence. I walked slowly toward the shelves. The deeper I went into the aisles, the quieter everything became. I could hear the wheels of my cart squeaking behind me. Then suddenly, a figure darted across the aisle ahead of me. Fast. Way too fast. I jumped back instinctively. What the hell? I hurried forward, expecting to see one of my coworkers laughing. Instead, the aisle was empty. I stood there confused, staring between the towering shelves. Then I noticed something strange. A half-eaten package of powdered donuts sitting on the floor. I frowned. Employees weren't allowed to eat in the stockroom. Seriously? I muttered. That uneasy feeling started creeping into my stomach then. The kind where your body notices something wrong before your brain catches up. I backed out of the aisle and returned to work, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But after that, every little sound bothered me. Every creak, every movement, every shadow between the shelves. About an hour later, I was breaking down cardboard near the dairy overstock section when a massive crashing noise exploded somewhere behind me. It sounded like an entire shelf collapsed. I nearly dropped my box cutter. What the hell? I rushed toward the sound. When I turned into the aisle, cans and boxes were scattered everywhere across the floor. Soup cans rolled in every direction. And crouched behind a stack of bottled water was a man. At first, all I saw was his eyes. Wide, dirty, panicked. Then he slowly stood up. I immediately took a step back. The guy looked horrible. He had a long, tangled beard, filthy clothes, and skin so dirty it looked gray under the fluorescent lights. His hoodie was ripped near the shoulder, and his hands shook slightly. He smelled awful too, like sweat, garbage, and something rotten. For a second, we both just stared at each other. Then I said, "Sir, you can't be back here." He didn't answer. His eyes kept darting around like an animal cornered in a trap. "You need to leave," I said more firmly. Still nothing. Then I noticed open food wrappers scattered near him. Granola bars, jerky packages, cracker boxes. My stomach dropped. He'd been eating back here. A horrible realization hit me all at once. This guy had probably been hiding inside the store overnight. "You need to come with me," I said carefully. "Security can help you out." The second I stepped closer, he bolted. He shoved past me so hard my shoulder slammed into the metal shelf. "Hey!" I took off after him instinctively. He sprinted through the aisles unbelievably fast, knocking boxes aside while I chased him. "Stop!" my voice echoed through the back room. He rounded a corner near receiving and nearly crashed into a pallet jack before sprinting through the swinging doors into grocery. Customers immediately turned. A woman gasped loudly. The man flew down the main aisle while people scrambled out of his way. "Call security!" I yelled. One of the cashiers grabbed her walkie immediately. The guy reached the front entrance and shoved through the sliding doors into the parking lot. By the time security got outside, he was already gone. Just gone. I stood there bent over trying to catch my breath while customers stared at me. "What happened?" one woman asked nervously. "There was a man hiding in the back room," I said. Her face went pale instantly. Security escorted me back to the stockroom while Marcus came rushing over. "What happened?" he asked. "There's a guy back there," I said breathlessly. Or there was. He was hiding behind the shelves. Marcus looked confused. "What guy? I don't know." "Homeless, maybe?" We walked deeper into the aisles together. And honestly, that's when things got creepy. Because once we started looking carefully, we realized the man hadn't just been there for an hour or two. He'd been living back there. Hidden behind pallets near the far wall was this small area where boxes had been rearranged almost like a little shelter. There were empty water bottles, food wrappers, a stained blanket, even a small flashlight. Marcus just stared at it silently. "What the hell?" he whispered. Security started checking every aisle while another manager reviewed cameras. The worst part? Nobody could figure out exactly when he came in. Apparently sometime during overnight stocking, he slipped inside through receiving while trucks were unloading. And somehow, nobody noticed him. One security guy crouched beside the blanket. "He's been here a while," he muttered. Then another employee found something else. A shopping basket filled with stolen food hidden behind paper towel pallets. Mostly snack foods, fruit, and bottled drinks. Enough to survive several days. I remember feeling genuinely unsettled standing there. Not just because he was hiding in the store, but because I had been alone with him back there for hours. If he wanted to hurt somebody, he easily could have. Marcus finally looked at me. "You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. Truthfully, I wasn't. For the rest of the shift, every noise made me jump. I kept imagining him hiding around corners watching me. That night, I barely slept. And things got worse 2 days later. I came in for another early shift around 5:45 a.m. The sky outside was still dark. As soon as I walked into the employee entrance, Marcus stopped me. "You hear what happened?" "What?" "They found him again." I felt my stomach tighten instantly. "What do you mean found him?" "He came back last night. Apparently, one of the overnight employees heard noises near the pet food aisle after closing. Security searched the store and eventually found the same man hiding behind outdoor furniture displays. This time, police were called immediately. But according to Marcus, the guy completely lost it when officers approached him. He started screaming that people were following him, Marcus said quietly. Like genuinely screaming. "What happened?" "They took him out in handcuffs." I didn't say anything for a moment. Part of me felt bad for him, honestly. The guy was clearly mentally ill or going through something terrible, but another part of me couldn't stop thinking about how close he had been to employees and customers while secretly living inside the store. A week later, the whole thing faded into another weird retail story everybody joked about. People started calling the back room the cave. Someone even taped a paper sign near receiving that said, "Beware of stockroom goblins." But I never really laughed about it, because one detail still bothered me. The day security reviewed the footage from the first incident, they showed Marcus and me part of the camera recording from grocery. You could see the man sprint out of the stockroom doors. Customers jumped aside. Cashiers looked shocked. Then the footage showed him running straight toward the exit. But right before he left, he suddenly stopped, just for a second, and turned directly toward the camera. I still remember his face clearly. Not angry, not scared, just exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept peacefully in years. Then he ran out the doors and disappeared forever. I quit Target about 7 months later after finding another job at a warehouse. But even now, whenever I walk into a store early in the morning and hear noises coming from the back rooms, I think about that guy hiding silently between the shelves while employees walked past him for days without knowing. And honestly, that still freaks me out more than anything else. What this story teaches us. The scariest part of this story isn't a chase or a threat. It's that danger was hiding silently in a completely familiar, everyday place for days without anyone noticing. That's the core lesson. Familiarity makes you stop truly seeing your surroundings. The warning signs were there early. Strange sounds, a moving shadow, a food wrapper that didn't belong, but they were all brushed off as nothing. In real life, danger leaves quiet clues before it escalates. Train yourself to pause and investigate small irregularities instead of ignoring them, because your environment is always communicating with you. Never confront an unknown person alone. The moment you discover someone who shouldn't be there, step back calmly and immediately alert security. You don't know their mental state, their desperation, or how they'll react when cornered. That's not cowardice, that's smart. And if you work in any retail or warehouse setting, pay attention to receiving areas during truck unloading hours. Prop doors and distracted workers create the exact window this man used to slip inside undetected. Personal suggestion. Spend 2 minutes at the start of every shift actually looking at your workspace. Notice what's moved, what's open, what doesn't belong. Most days it means nothing. But on the one day something is genuinely wrong, those 2 minutes protect everyone around you. Awareness costs nothing but attention. I used to do almost all my grocery shopping late Saturday mornings because it was the only time during the week when I actually had a few hours to myself. I worked long shifts at a warehouse outside the city, usually 6 days a week, and by the time Saturday came around, I was exhausted. Grocery shopping wasn't exactly something I looked forward to, but it was part of the routine. Coffee first, then Target, then back home before traffic got bad. That morning started like any other. I remember waking up already annoyed because my upstairs neighbor had been stomping around since 7 a.m. I threw on a hoodie, grabbed my keys, and drove across town while listening to some true crime podcast that I wasn't really paying attention to. It was cold outside for early October, the kind of cold where the sky looks permanently gray even though it's barely noon. The Target near me sat beside a busy shopping center with a PetSmart and a grocery outlet. Saturdays they were always packed. Parents dragging screaming kids around, teenagers wandering the electronics section, carts everywhere. Normal chaos. I parked near the back because the front rows were full and headed inside with my reusable bags hanging off my shoulder. The second I walked in, I got hit with warm air and the smell of popcorn from the snack counter near the entrance. There was a woman arguing with a cashier about coupons while a kid cried near the dollar section. Nothing unusual. I grabbed a cart and started my usual route, produce first, then frozen food, then snacks. I'm pretty observant by nature, probably because of the warehouse job. You get used to noticing people around you. Forklifts, pallets, distracted workers. If you don't pay attention, you get hurt. That's probably why I noticed him so early. At first, he didn't seem important. Just another shopper. I first saw him near the cereal aisle while I was comparing coffee creamers. He looked to be somewhere in his 40s, maybe older. Brown jacket. Jeans. Medium height. Thin hair brushed to the side. Nothing about him immediately stood out except that he wasn't actually shopping. He was just standing there, not looking at products, just looking down the aisle. The moment our eyes met, he grabbed a random cereal box off the shelf like he'd suddenly remembered why he was there. I didn't think much of it. People are weird. I kept shopping. A few minutes later, I moved over to the canned food section. I was looking for soup because temperatures had dropped hard that week. While I was crouched near the lower shelf, I noticed someone walk past the end of the aisle. Brown jacket, same guy. Again, I ignored it, but then it happened a third time, and a fourth. Every aisle I entered, he appeared somewhere nearby within a minute or two. At one point, I stopped my cart abruptly and pretended to compare pasta sauces while watching the reflection in the glass freezer doors behind me. Sure enough, there he was, standing at the far end of the aisle pretending to look at chips. My stomach tightened. I remember telling myself not to overreact. Maybe he just had the same route through the store. Maybe I was being paranoid, but deep down I already knew something was wrong. I grabbed my phone from my pocket and texted my friend Melissa. Some weird guy keeps following me around Target. She responded almost immediately. Tell security. I might just be paranoid. You literally listen to murder podcasts every day. Don't ignore your instincts. I almost laughed at that. But the uneasy feeling stayed. I decided to test it. Instead of continuing through groceries, I suddenly turned toward the home decor section on the opposite side of the store. I slowed down near the candles and fake plants and pretended to browse. 30 seconds later, the man appeared at the end of the aisle. This time he wasn't even pretending well. He looked directly at me, not casually, not accidentally, just stared. I quickly turned away and pushed my cart towards seasonal items. My heart had started beating hard enough that I could actually hear it in my ears. I passed a Target employee stocking shelves, a teenage guy with earbuds hanging around his neck. "Hey," I said quietly. He looked up. "Yeah?" This might sound weird, but I think someone's following me. His expression changed immediately. "Who?" I looked back. The man was gone. "I don't know," I muttered. "Maybe I'm overthinking it." The employee glanced around. "You want me to call security?" I almost said yes. But then embarrassment hit me. What if I was wrong? What if the guy really was just shopping? "No, it's okay," I said quickly. "Sorry, you sure?" "Yeah." I walked away before he could say anything else. I regretted that decision later. For the next 15 minutes, I tried finishing my shopping as quickly as possible. I skipped half the things I needed and headed toward checkout. The lines were packed. Every register had people waiting. I picked one near the middle and started unloading groceries onto the conveyor belt. For a moment, I actually relaxed. I thought maybe the guy had left. Then I heard a cart roll behind me. I turned slightly. It was him. He had no cart, just a single bottle of water in his hand. That was it, one bottle of water. He stood directly behind me in line without saying a word. I could feel him watching me. The cashier noticed I looked nervous. "You okay?" she asked while scanning my items. "Yeah," I lied. The man stepped closer. Too close. I could smell cigarettes on his jacket. I swiped my card so fast I accidentally dropped it. The man bent slightly like he was going to pick it up. "I got it," I snapped before he could touch it. He slowly straightened back up. Still silent. The cashier handed me my receipt. "Have a nice day." I grabbed my bags and left almost immediately. The cold air outside hit me hard as the automatic doors slid open. I walked fast toward the parking lot, trying not to look behind me. My car was parked near the back under one of the light poles. I reached it, threw the bags inside, and looked around. Nothing. No sign of him. I exhaled shakily and got into the driver's seat. "You're freaking yourself out," I muttered aloud. I started the engine and pulled out of the parking spot. As I drove toward the exit, I checked my mirrors. Still nothing. I felt stupid, completely stupid. Then I stopped at the red light outside the shopping center, and a dark gray sedan pulled in behind me. I glanced casually into the mirror. The driver leaned forward slightly. Brown jacket. My chest tightened instantly. No way. The light turned green. I made a right turn. The sedan turned too. At first I tried rationalizing it again. Same direction. Coincidence. Then I switched lanes suddenly without signaling. The sedan switched immediately behind me. That icy feeling spread through my stomach so fast it made me nauseous. I picked up my phone with one hand and called Melissa. She answered instantly. "What happened?" He followed me out. "What?" "He's behind my car right now." "Are you serious?" "Yes. Drive to a police station. Right now." I looked in the mirror again. The sedan stayed 2 car lengths behind me. Every turn I made, he copied. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. "Don't drive home," Melissa said firmly. "Do not drive home." "I know." I opened maps with trembling fingers and searched for the nearest police station. 12 minutes away. It felt like an hour. I drove through traffic trying not to panic while the sedan stayed behind me the entire time. Sometimes he got closer, sometimes farther back, but he never disappeared. At one red light, I finally got a clear look at him. It was definitely the same man. He was staring directly ahead with both hands on the wheel, expressionless. That scared me more than if he'd looked angry. It felt deliberate, controlled. I whispered, "Oh my God, you still there?" Melissa asked. "Yeah." "You see him?" "Yes." "Stay on the phone." The police station finally came into view near downtown beside the courthouse. The moment I turned into the parking lot, the sedan slowed. For one horrible second, I thought he might follow me inside anyway. Instead, he drove straight past the station without even looking over, and disappeared down the road. I parked crooked near the entrance because my hands wouldn't stop shaking. A police officer walking outside noticed immediately and came over. "You all right?" "I think someone followed me," I said. My voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He brought me inside and another officer took my statement while I tried calming down enough to explain everything clearly. "What did he look like?" I described him as best I could. "Plate number?" "I didn't see it." "You sure he followed you intentionally?" "Yes," I said immediately. "He was following me around Target first." The officer nodded slowly. Unfortunately, without plates or clearer identifying details, there wasn't much they could do right then. One officer did check the parking lot cameras from the station entrance, but the footage wasn't clear enough to identify the sedan. They asked if I wanted someone to escort me home. I almost said yes. But after sitting there nearly an hour, I started convincing myself maybe I'd overreacted again. Maybe he got scared once he realized where I was going. Maybe it would end there. I finally drove home around early evening after circling my neighborhood twice to make sure nobody followed me. For weeks afterward, I couldn't shop alone without feeling anxious. Every time I saw someone standing too long in an aisle, my stomach dropped. Every gray sedan looked suspicious. I even started driving to a different Target across town because the thought of returning to that store made my skin crawl. The strangest part is that the man never said a single word to me. Not once. No threats. No comments. Nothing. And honestly, I think that made it scarier, because I still have no idea what he wanted. Maybe he planned to rob me, maybe worse. Or maybe he enjoyed terrifying people. I'll never know. But I do know one thing. If I hadn't trusted my instincts and driven to that police station instead of home, there's a very real chance this story could have ended very differently. What this story teaches us. This story is uniquely disturbing because the threat never spoke, never touched anything, and never technically did anything illegal, and yet every instinct in this woman's body was screaming. That is the entire lesson wrapped in one sentence. Silence and stillness can be just as threatening as aggression. The man never needed to say a word because his behavior communicated everything. The calculated repositioning, the expressionless stare, the controlled following. Predatory behavior doesn't always look like what we imagine. Sometimes it looks like a quiet man holding a single bottle of water. The most critical takeaway here is learning to recognize the difference between coincidence and a pattern. One person appearing nearby means nothing. Twice is noticeable. 3 times across completely different sections of a store is a pattern, and patterns don't lie. The narrator tested her suspicion brilliantly by deliberately changing her route to an unrelated section of the store. He followed within 30 seconds. That simple test confirmed everything her gut was already telling her. If you ever feel watched or followed in a public space, change direction suddenly and observe. A genuine coincidence will not follow you across an entire store and then onto the highway. The second lesson is about the damage embarrassment does to self-protection. She had a target employee right in front of her, already concerned, already offering to call security, and she talked herself out of it because she feared being wrong. That moment of self-doubt nearly cost her everything. Society conditions people, especially women, to minimize their own discomfort and avoid causing inconvenience. That conditioning is genuinely dangerous. You do not need proof to ask for help. Discomfort alone is reason enough. Security guards and police exist precisely for uncertain situations like this one. The single most important decision she made was driving to a police station instead of home. That one choice completely changed the outcome of this story. Never lead a potential stalker to your residence. Your home address is the one piece of information that converts a public threat into a permanent one. If you ever suspect you are being followed in a vehicle, do not drive home regardless of how exhausted or shaken you feel. Drive toward a police station, a fire station, or any busy public institution with visible authority present. Personal suggestion: save your nearest police station's address in your phone's Maps app right now before you ever need it. When your hands are shaking and your mind is panicking, searching for it in that moment costs you precious seconds. Preparation done calmly in advance is always more reliable than problem-solving done in fear.